everyone. It's so great to be with you this morning. Thank you for welcoming me into your home. Um, I'm Laura. For those of you who don't know, I'm married to Jeremy, and we have been friends with Emmanuel Church for many years now. And only in the last month we have become members, which is so exciting for us. We have been part of the Regions Beyond family since it began. Jeremy and I have been with our three girls in South Africa, and we were there for 15 years serving the Regions Beyond family of churches. And we were with Steve Oliver in Clarence to start with Dicklebank Church, and then we planted into Bethlehem, a farming community, and we led a church there for 9 years. And then God has moved us on, and I was born and raised right here in the northeast of England. So we returned end of 2019. It's all a bit of a blur, sorry. End of 2019, and we're expecting that we would have already headed out on the next adventure that God's got for us, but Jesus had other plans, and so we've been around. But it's been so great to get to be more involved with Emmanuel and to get to know some of you a bit more. Obviously COVID times mean that's a little bit different to how it might have been, and we've not been around to many people's houses for a cup of tea, but at least we can Zoom. But yeah, so this morning I get the great honour of sharing about the call of God. So as I said, we are back in the northeast for a little while, but we know we are heading out again, and God has called us to Kenya. So he's spoken of the unreached people on the northern border of the coast in Kenya. They're heading up into Somalia, and the unreached peoples on the islands and inland. And he's put on our heart his commission to go to the nations. So I suppose maybe I'm an obvious choice to speak about the call of God. But what I want to talk about this morning is, what is the call? Who is the call for? Why are we called? And how do we work it out? I want to get practical. So, is the call just for a few? Is it for people like me who turn up and say we're called to another nation? Or is it for people who are called to ministry? I think the answer is no. I think truthfully, you and I don't have a differing call at all. Where I walk mine out might be different, but I think you and I actually have the same call. Because when I get scriptural about this, what I find is that the call of Jesus is come and follow me. And that call is for you as much as it is for me. In fact, that call is for everyone living on earth. That call, he longs to see all of his children come home. And that happens when we come and we follow him. Jesus says 13 times in the gospel, would you come and follow me? And we're going to read one of them together now. So we're going to read from Matthew 19. So most of the times that Jesus shows us, the Bible shows us Jesus saying, come and follow me, the response is phenomenal and really, really challenging, because often it uses the word immediately. So immediately the disciples left their nets and they followed him. Immediately they left what they were doing and they turned and they followed Jesus. But I want to read a slightly different story. I'm reading about the rich young ruler. So in Matthew 19 verse 16, it says, just then a man came up to Jesus and asked, Teacher, what good thing must I do to get eternal life? Why do you ask me about what is good? There is only one who is good. If you want to enter life, keep the commandments. Which ones? The man inquired. Jesus replied, you shall not murder, you shall not commit adultery, you shall not steal, you shall not give false testimony, honor your father and mother, and love your neighbour as yourself. All these I've kept, the young man said. What do I still lack? Jesus answered, well, if you want to be perfect, go, sell your possessions and give to the poor, and you will have treasure in heaven. Then come follow me. When the young man heard this, he went away sad because he had great wealth. Jesus goes on to explain to the disciples how hard it is for the rich to enter the kingdom. And it is a challenge for us to give up our possessions. But I think this principle is about more than just our money. If we're going to say yes to Jesus, yes, I'm going to come and I'm going to follow you, it takes surrender. It's about saying it's not about what I had planned for my life, but I'm going to choose to trust what you have. The rich young ruler didn't feel that he could do that. And he goes away with a heavy heart. Some translations say deeply burdened. And I was thinking, why is he deeply burdened? Because you'd have thought if he just wanted to keep his possessions, he'd have been like, oh, all right then. But yet he'd seen something in Jesus, something that he himself felt he couldn't attain, but something that he wanted. And he knew there was a recognition within him that the call was something of value, but yet something that he couldn't have. I'd like to read us another story of Jesus. This time it follows one of my favourite stories where Jesus has been sitting with the Samaritan woman at the well, and he's just revealed to her all that he knows about her and his compassion for her, his mercy towards her. He's really revealed who he is, what his nature is. And as the disciples are returning, we're in John 4:27. Just then, his disciples returned, and they were surprised to find him talking with a woman. But no one asked, what do you want, or why are you talking with her? The woman left her jar and went back to town and said to people, come and see a man who told me everything I ever did. Could this be the Messiah? They came out of town and made their way towards him. But meanwhile, his disciples urged him, Rabbi, eat something. But Jesus said, I have food to eat that you know nothing about. The disciples said to each other, did someone bring him food? But Jesus says, my food is to do the will of him who sent me and to finish his work. Don't you have a saying, it's still 4 months until harvest? Well, I tell you, open your eyes and look at the fields. They are ripe for the harvest. He goes on to talk in that language that we're familiar with about one sows and one reaps, and we're going to get to sow what another man we're going to get to reap what another man has sowed, and we get to harvest what others have worked for. But the thing I want to look at this morning is that Jesus talks about his call as his food. It's not something that he does. It's not a secondary thing. It's not what he does at the end of a day of being a carpenter, but his call to do the work of my Father and to complete his mission. That is his food. So I was thinking, what is food? What does it do for us? And I was thinking about the satisfaction that it brings, the sustenance, the sustaining power of food, but also the enjoyment. And I think here Jesus is revealing to us something that we often miss. I don't know about you, but you often hear of people who are pretty burdened by the call. It's a heavy weight, oh, I feel like I have to go and share the gospel with my neighbour, or I have to go. But yet here, Jesus' talk, his language is not one of burden, but his language is one of richness. Our food is a sustaining and enjoyable thing for us. And Jesus is talking about the fields being ripe for the harvest, but it not being something that we have to do, but it being like our source of life, I suppose. So then I'm thinking, can running an Alpha course, for example, be the source of our life? For me, can moving to Kenya be my source of sustenance? That doesn't make sense. But it brings us back to, again, well, what then is the true call? And the true call is come and follow me. Jesus lived a life that demonstrates to us how we can walk in obedience to the Father. He lived a life where he says, I say nothing except what I hear the Father say. I do nothing except what he's told me to do. I think nothing except the thoughts that he gives me. His is a life of complete surrender to the Father. We see the way that they interact in this beautiful unity and harmony, where Jesus gets to fully be himself and share his opinions and his thoughts with the Father, but they have become one. And for us, how are we going to walk out a call to come and follow him? How are we going to live as chosen and called and anointed followers of Jesus? Our answer is revealed here. In the same way that Jesus sought the Father first and became one with him, in the same way he talks about abiding in him, being connected, our call comes from the overflow. Jesus says to us, when he was asked, what is the greatest commandment? You know, he says, the greatest commandment is to love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your mind, with all your soul, with all your strength. And the second comes out of it. The second is to love your neighbour as yourself. Often we think about the call being about the effect on the world. We live in a broken and a hurting world. We live in a world that desperately needs a revelation of Jesus. I wholeheartedly believe that. But I also know that what the world needs, we cannot give to them alone. It has to come out of a place of having seen Jesus first. Our first thing in the call is to come to him, to be with him. In fact, our everything in the call is to come to him and to be with him. Often we think, you know, if a nun or a monk, a modern nun or a monk were to retreat and just be with Jesus, people say, you know, that phrase, you're too heavenly minded to be of any earthly use. I think if we're too earthly minded, we're no good either. We have to get into his presence. Because if we come to him and we behold him, we will overflow onto the world. The further into his heart that we go, the more impact we will have on the world around us. And I know for myself, I don't have the answers for the world. I just don't. And I know that I can maintain for a short time some useful good works and some help. But what I want to see is I want to see my life laid down as a response to Jesus for the rest of my life. I want to bring his kingdom wherever I go for the rest of my days. I can only do that if I am beholding him. The call is first and continually to behold him, to seek him, to find him, and to know him. That is not a burden, but it's an incredible honour that we're not only invited in to worship him, but we're commanded to seek him. We're not only able to spend a bit of time with him, but the purpose of our lives is to get to know him. The purpose of our life is to see him for who he is. Because as we do, we become transformed to become like him. And as we become like him, we can give to this world what it needs. The demonstration of who God is. The possibility of a relationship with God is what this world is longing for. Hope, true hope, truth, justice, mercy. But these things can't flow from within us. They flow from the heart of God. So let's push in for the heart of God. Let's seek to find him in his fullness. Let's come and follow him. And as we do, he will lead us. He will lead us into the how and the where and the when and the what and the who of that we are to share his love with. But if we seek him first, then he'll take care of all of those things. We can get so caught up in, I don't know what my role is. My challenge for you this morning is your role is to seek him. Seek him in his fullness. And as you fall more in love with him, you will share that love with those around you. And just as Jesus uses the example of food, that it's the work of God is his food, it's what makes him feel alive. I want to challenge you this morning that when you step into the destiny that Jesus has for you, to know him more, to run after him, to walk with him, and to shed that light around wherever you go, you will feel more alive than you ever have. And your call, the specifics, will be different to mine. Not all of you are called to Kenya. It would be great if some of you come with us, but not all of you are called to Kenya. But we are all called to come and follow him. And as we follow him, we will shine his light on those around us. The more we know him, the more our passion for those around us will grow. The more we see the beauty of his face, the more we will understand his love for our neighbour, and the more we will be able to truly love them. Will you respond to Jesus this morning? Because if you want to, this is not about a glamorous thing. It's not about a big decision of moving to a new nation. Surrender is about the big things and the small things. And truthfully, the surrender is as hard in the big things as it is in the small things. Sometimes it's as hard to surrender in saying, yes, God, I'll move to a new nation, as it is to say, yes, God, I'll go and talk to my neighbour and share your gospel with them. Or to say, yeah, okay, it is time for me to speak out on that truth. Or yes, God, it is time for me to forgive and bridge that gap. But Jesus is asking all of us first, will we fall more in love with him? Will we come to him and then walk with him? It's a beautiful journey he has for us, and I'm excited to walk it with you.